There's no one in the investment world that I'm probably more evenly yoked with from an ideological, theological standpoint than Art Alley. And Art, I sure appreciate you taking some time to be with us.
Amen, brother. Good morning.
Good morning. Art, I read this press release last couple of weeks ago, actually before it was released, and was very excited about it. Tell us what's happening with Brinks. People see Brinks trucks. We know what's happening with Brinks, but tell us what's happening. Really, this could be really new ground for the mutual fund industry, but how this is going to impact the Defensive Strategies Fund at Timothy, and what's going to be happening with that.
Sure, Dan. And thanks for the opportunity.
Glad to do it.
Number one, we being first or the only, that never even entered our mind.
Oh, no, I know that.
The entire mission of Timothy, and I take it very seriously, is to the best we can protect our shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
So to that degree, if you don't mind, I'll just make one quick statement.
Yep.
All of our money managers, who are all top tier, by the way,
Yes.
as you well know, Dan,
Yep.
all of them have been instructed to dial back risk in every one of our 13 funds. And what that means is I'm asking them, do not continue to be fully invested. We want a cash buffer. And by next month, well, we're almost August, but by September, I really want to see about 50% cash in all of our funds. Mm-hmm. Just in case God chooses to use his pattern, which he may or may not do. I mean, that's up to him, mm-hmm. Of the 29th of a lull at the end of the Shemitah year, to balance the books once again. But in more particular, to the point of this show, our Defensive Strategies Fund, which is, I guess, about 4 years old, we were a little limited in what we could do because 4 years ago, we weren't quite in as bad a shape economically, morally, spiritually as we are today. So we didn't have the ability to really be as defensive as I wanted to be with owning gold and silver bullion directly instead of through ETFs, electronically traded funds, like GLD and SLV. We have owned them, but I'm not comfortable just owning a piece of paper. We wanted for our shareholders to own the bullion itself. Mm. So the motivation behind that is I didn't want you have to store it somewhere. I can't store it in my bottom desk drawer. Right. It has to be secure. Mm-hmm. And I really was uncomfortable storing it in one of the big banks who are operating like casinos today with
Yes.
interest rates where they are. And I have a suspicion, I can't say for sure, but I think all the gold, which is where the SEC has required funds in the past to store, if they invested in gold, to store their bullion. Mm-hmm. But I've got a suspicion they use that bullion as collateral against some of the wild borrowing they're doing. I just didn't want to risk our shareholders' money.
Right.
And the SEC, due to Gold Bullion International, who's just a gold dealer,
right.
A quality gold dealer,
right.
They petitioned the SEC to get a no-action letter of can't these funds store, in addition to the big banks, store the bullion in a Brinks vault who's totally outside of the financial Wall Street complex. And they got the no-action letter, and we used that as a very comfortable reason to start investing in bullion and storing it in the Brinks vault in New York. Mm-hmm. And being the skeptic that I am and you are, trust but verify. So I went up there to see it after we put in our first order, and it's there. And it is allocated to us, and nobody else can lay claim to that bullion. So our Defensive Strategies Fund is limited. We can only put 10% of the assets in that fund in direct gold and silver bullion. Otherwise, it puts us in a different category. So I am going to make sure we are up at the 10%. We're doing a lot of other things in that fund to try to really react in case the wheels come off. Mm-hmm. And there's a good chance they will, and I know you're telling your audience about that, but nobody knows when.
Right.
But we do know, inevitably, there has to be a comeuppance. So we wanted to own it. We were grateful that Gold Bullion International led the way by getting the no action letter. We acted on it, and then I found out we're the only company that's done that so far, but I'm sure others will follow.
So the people in the Defensive Strategies Fund can be assured that they, will own, as part of owning this mutual fund or shares in this mutual fund, the physical gold. This is not going to be. This is going to be the physical gold that is stored at a Brinks in a Brinks safe.
That is exactly correct. And gold is fluctuating around, and it fluctuates with emotions and fear and greed and all the rest. But when the wheels come off, man, I could see gold going to $5,000 an ounce. I don't know that for sure, but we wanted to be there because it always has been the flight to safety and store of value when people really get scared of some of the other assets they've invested in. So we wanted to own it, and we do now.
And I've advocated to our listeners that, listen, if you're going to own gold, which is fine, if it's 15% of your portfolio or whatever you feel comfortable with, own the physical. And this is the way I've not been in favor of the GLDs and the SLVs and the ETF kinds of things. I think own it physically, because if there's a crisis, it's the physical that is going to make a difference for you. It is going to go up in value. It is going to go to $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 an ounce. But the question always is are there going to be buyers? Are you going to be able to sell it? And I think it's going to be a lot easier to be able to move a mutual fund when it's up based on this backing of the physical gold than it might be to take a gold 1 ounce bar and find somebody that's going to give you, $6,000 for it. And I think it's a great opportunity. And I just want to make it clear to our listeners. Timothy is trying to minimize what the losses could be during an economic crisis, because I don't want people to have the impression that you're saying or I'm saying that this is safe. It's 100% safe. That there's not going to be any potential downturn, right?
That is exactly right. What we're trying to do is the word minimize is an excellent word, Dan. We are trying to protect our shareholders as best we can because nobody knows when and what and if. Nobody can say. If somebody tells you for sure this is going to happen on this date, it's like the old Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to walk away and know when to run. Right. Nobody knows but God himself. But he does have a pattern. And that's why we're really taking a defensive stance at this point, and we're going to reassess at the end of September, which will be the end of the Shemitah year, just to see if he chose to do that again. I've got a suspicion he may.
Yeah.
Others are convinced he will. You're a fool if you try to predict God's timing.
Yes.
But you're a fool if you don't pay attention to his patterns.
Amen.
So we're just trying to be very careful because that's my job, to protect our shareholders as best we can. And if, things fluctuate, they always fluctuate. And, if it drops, it's going to drop. But our goal is drop a whole lot less than the markets that aren't taking this thing seriously and part of the Wall Street complex that just says, just keep investing. Everything's going to be fine.
And the hope is by September to have all of the Timothy 13 funds with significant portions in cash.
Yeah, they're going to continue to operate according to their dictate in the markets in which they are. We're just dialing back risk just in case. Mm-hmm. And if it does crash and we're 50% in cash, we're going to be pretty well positioned.
Yeah, that is
because
for sure.
Things, will come back eventually. And if I can invest at instead of $80 a share in stock, if I can get it for 20, that's not a bad thing.
That is a really good thing.